Hello there everyone and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here and I just thought I'd start this video off by saying a massive thank you to everyone who has liked or commented or just subscribed in general. Truly means the world, and I really hope that I can provide back on or give back on the promise that I gave to you of providing top quality content. Without any further ado, I guess we'll go straight into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be launching a series basically giving loads of interesting football anecdotes, I'd say, or ones which I find interesting, and try and see if I can bring them to light for you and make them as exciting and as vibrant as possible. So in case you're wondering why I'm looking down a lot of the time, that is my fault. I'm looking at a script I've already written on my laptop, so please just bear with me. I know it's a little bit unprofessional, but there is a photo database that I could use in conjunction with speaking into a camera, but it does cost a lot of money and I'll have to wait and see if I can actually be bothered to get the investment for it. I thought I would kickstart my series on incredible football anecdotes with perhaps my favourite of them all, even if it means we will probably be going downhill from here, and profile a man who has developed a reputation as the best footballer in his field. No pun intended. Although perhaps not in the most conventional way possible. This is something I've covered on one of my radio shows that I've done whilst at uni, but it's more than worthy of being brought up here in greater detail in all its glory. The man's name whom I will be discussing, as you may have guessed by the title of this video, is the one and only Kaiser. Now I know what you'll be thinking straight away. Who the hell is that guy? Because when it comes to the list of greatest footballers of all time, Kaiser doesn't feature anywhere near the top 100, 200, 500, or even 1 million footballers to ever grace the pitch. However, he is undoubtedly the greatest fraudster the game has ever known, beating the likes of Ali Dyer, Tomadera and Dejan Lovren to that coveted accolade. So here is the story of Kaiser, revealed to you lovely people of YouTube in all its glory. Before I get into the video, please continue to like and subscribe and share around as much as you can, and obviously I forgot to mention this last time, there is a little notification bell that you can ring, and whenever you ring that you'll get notified of when I upload as soon as I upload. So without further ado, let's go. He was born as Carlos Enrique Raposo in 1963, but he was adopted immediately after he was brought into the world, as his mother left for a supposed emergency and never returned. His nickname, and the name with which he would become synonymous the world over, arrived in the 1970s, where his playing style and flowing hair was similar to that of the German maestro Franz Beckenbauer, who was nicknamed Der Kaiser, and so it stuck. He lived a life of poverty during his childhood years and didn't succeed much in school, but his first taste of fiendish ingenuity came aged 12. In December 1975, his mother, who was sadly an alcoholic, said that if Carlos didn't pass all of his exams, Christmas in his house would be cancelled. But in order to get around this, he and a friend snuck into the school in the early hours of the morning with a note saying that a bomb was due to go off at lunchtime, a crime that he reported to the police. The school was cancelled, Carlos had his Christmas, and the results came back in January. This would be the first in a long line of scheming tactics from the little Brazilian, although heartache would sadly follow, as he lost both of his adopted parents within the space of a few months, and was released by Botafogo, a high-profile team in Brazil, and then Flamengo, a club with a similar stature, all by the age of 16. At the latter club, he fell victim to a case of mistaken identity during a youth game, which led to his dismissal from the club. He was sent off after a skirmish instigated by a violent tackle from someone on his team, but it wasn't him who committed the foul, but he was still sent off regardless. He stood up for himself against the board, but it all proved in vain. All of this made him lose his appetite for the playing side of the game, made manifest when, upon his arrival at Mexican side Puebla in 1979, he gave a false sick note to the club, and when he had recovered, he pretended that he'd torn a thigh muscle. This was a shrewd idea, because as a result of medical equipment not being of the highest quality, nothing was able to be detected. Not because that there was anything wrong, but because they weren't able to detect that there was anything wrong, so he was able to get away with it. Kaiser followed these spurious claims up wherever he went, which included spells at some of Brazil's top clubs such as Fluminense, Vasco da Gama, and again at Botafogo, claiming that this troublesome muscle injury followed him around. The players at these clubs knew that he was having the club on, but they kept his lies under wraps so that the teams, and their physios, wouldn't know otherwise. He would also make up false excuses to get him away from the club, often imploring to leave through citing homesickness and illnesses of family relatives, while still being paid, of course. It was a case of using absolutely any old yarn as a ruse in order for him to continue the living lifestyle he wanted to live. Now, there are a myriad of methods which he used in order to keep this up, including using a fake phone and calling agents and chairmen at other clubs while speaking in English so as not to be found out. Although he was once found out after a club doctor, who was fluent in English, overheard him and figured out what he was doing. However, this would often work, with the club he was at that moment seemingly obliged to give him a more lucrative contract in order to keep him on their books. Because clearly, the superstar Kaiser was attracting interest from clubs across the world. He actually did sign for a Corsican club in Hazzabhajan, whose fans welcomed him as a new superstar signing. He claimed to be a world beater and a prolific goal scorer, of course, because it's Carlos Kaiser, what else do you expect? And upon his unveiling, he was asked to take part in a training session in front of the baying fans to show off his talent. He refused, resorting instead to kicking balls into the crowd, supposedly as a token of goodwill as a result of their kind gestures towards him. But in reality, it was to avoid having to actually showcase his skill, which, it is important to note, were non-existent. He was not a good footballer, he just feigned being a good footballer in order to keep on living the footballer's lifestyle. He dubbed himself as the footballer who hated playing football. He built up rapport with some of Brazil's most high-profile current and ex-footballers at the time, including Renato Gaucho and Carlos Alberto Torres, the latter of whom captained Brazil at the 1970 World Cup, which they won. With this, he was able to get them to write recommendations for him to go to other clubs once his various ploys had passed their sell-by date at his club at the time. They would be published in a couple of newspapers and sent to various clubs, and with technology in Brazil in the 1980s not as widespread as it is now, and certainly more archaic, the clubs believed him and tried to sign him. Footage of him was thin on the ground, obviously, because, well, there wasn't any. So they had to take the player's word for it. And then, of course, when he got to the clubs in question, he would feign injury to prevent him from playing, and the circle continued. He would carry around this troublesome muscle injury to whichever club he went to. However, at one of the clubs he was at, by the name of Bangu, he was very nearly forced onto the pitch. And the fact that I have to say that when discussing a footballer is quite an astonishing feat in and of itself. At the time he was at the club, it was under the ownership of the ruthless Castor de Andrade, a drug dealer who disguised his carnival and football exploits as for his love of them, when in reality, it was for his love of money, drugs selling, and organised crime. One of the people implicated in FIFA's many corruption scandals, he would frequently pass on bundles of cash to one of his close affiliates, Hazzabhajan, FIFA's president at the time, as well as over 150 other high-ranking officials across Brazil, in order to keep him on their good. When referees went against Bangu, they were probably in for some tough times at the hands of Andrade's mob. I'm not going to elaborate further, but I think you can get the implication from that. Surprisingly enough though, Andrade was on good terms with Kaiser and even had people sing Carlos's praises during training sessions. He was, supposedly, the second coming of Pele, even with his injury struggles. So, when Andrade believed that the injury had alleviated, he requested that Kaiser was put on the bench for a key game. Carlos reluctantly obliged on the grounds that he wouldn't be put on the pitch, but then, after about 70 minutes or so, he was told to go and warm up. The fans, angered by his lack of game time, supposedly chanted homophobic slurs at him, and he used this as an incentive to start a fight with them. He was subsequently sent off before entering the pitch, and in the dressing room, Andrade, who bear in mind had a gun on him at this point, confronted Kaiser, who pleaded his innocence and stated that the fans who insulted him were not true fans. He needn't have worried. Andrade requested that his contract be extended and his pay doubled. He got away, potentially, from his life being ended. His quick-thinking gift of the gab, of knowing what to say at any particular time, came to the fore in his second part of his fraudulence, claiming to be people he wasn't in order to gain more popularity and attention, especially amongst women. He has said it himself that the only reason why he was a footballer was so he could get better access, and more access, to females, and he claims to have slept with over 1,000 women. 1,000. That's mental. He would use any opportunity to get it on, even once doing the act at a friend's wedding. However, he knew what to say if ever there was a situation in which he was in the wrong, in order to get him out of jail free. Once, after being caught in the act with a married woman by her husband, he claimed to have escaped from someone else with whom he was getting busy. Now, this is a quote that I can't say is completely accurate or not, but it is in the book Kaiser by Rob Smith, so I'm going to go from that. He supposedly said things along the line with, start quote, "I climbed up to your balcony from the flat downstairs. I was with the person below, and her brother-in-law arrived. I had no idea she was married, and was terrified he would beat me. If I was with your wife, do you think I would be standing out here waiting for you to sort me out? I would have jumped to the next balcony or the one below. I've never even met your wife." I mean, that's one way of getting out of danger. And surprisingly enough, he was actually... Anyhow, one of his greatest ploys in order to attract more attention was to show women videos of him scoring incredible goals in order to impress them, to such an extent that they would be willing to spend the night with him. Only one problem though, it wasn't actually him, of course, because there wasn't any footage of him. But TV footage in Brazil in the 1980s was flaky at best, and the ladies weren't able to distinguish between Kaiser in the flesh and the person on the screen, who was most likely another high-profile footballer whom Kaiser was claiming to be. Furthermore, he would claim to be somebody else in order to receive entrance to VIP sections and nightclubs. Renato Gaucho, his friend, was surprised to find out that, upon arriving at one such venue, a man by the name of Renato Gaucho was already in the building, and as such he was refused entrance. Of course, the fake Gaucho was Kaiser, probably too busy chatting up girls by this point. He was even put on the judging panel of a beauty contest masquerading as Carlos Eduardo, who not only played for a different team, but was of a different skin colour from Kaiser too. You might think, therefore, that most of his teammates would have hated him for his exploits, but if anything, he is claimed by many to be one of the most generous people they ever came across. Using his charlatan status and wealth that he accrued, he organised girls to come and sleep with various members of the teams he was with, once organising, at one of his teams, a group of 10 girls to amuse his fellow players. No more words needed. He even talked a colleague into kicking his alcoholism, having been deterred himself by drugs and alcohol at a young age, presumably as a result of his adoptive mother's alcoholism. Never once touching a drop of it, although when the opportunity arose to promote alcoholic brand, Kaiser wasn't one to say no, mostly for the monetary gains. Mauricio, someone who played alongside Kaiser, states that he was very dear to all of us. He never did anyone any harm. He just wanted to be happy. However, his reputation as a fraudster is so great that the greatest teams in Brazil do not even confirm or deny whether or not he was on their books, perhaps in potential shame of admitting that they fell for his schemes. In fact, a lot of his story could be a case of too good to be true, but people have confirmed that he did also join a club in Texas, so we know at least that one part of his story is veritable. Don't get me wrong, the players knew that Kaiser wasn't a talented football player, but with this incredible combination of storytelling, play acting, and lavish lifestyle, Kaiser forged a reputation as a kind-hearted lady killer, who never meant malice, but simply wanted to live the football life on his and nobody else's terms. Essentially, living the footballer's lifestyle, but just without playing the actual sport itself. He retired, so to speak, in the 1990s, and his record on Wikipedia reads 9 clubs, 0 goals, and 0 appearances across an 11-year playing career. Even Ross Turnbull can't rival that. Nowadays, he works as a bodybuilder, specialising in building up core strength in females, but he will always be known as the footballer who never played football. What an absolute hero, and someone that I could probably aspire to be, considering my football skills are non-existent. But that just about wraps up today's video. Thank you very, very much for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed it, and of course, let me know your thoughts on Kaiser's incredible story down in the comments below. Please obviously make sure that you are subscribed to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. Share it around as much as you can. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching again, and until next time, I'll see you then.